Hello, world. We are the Secret Squirrels, and we're here to inform and entertain you. Hopefully, I don't know which one comes first, but once in a while we have a piece of information that gets out there that actually is useful information that you might want to know about. Otherwise, have a little fun, that kind of thing. But tonight I wanted to look especially at the notion of incommensurability, and I know that's a $2 word or whatever, but basically it means if you're a couple people with different points of view, sometimes we can't even talk to each other because we don't know where each other's coming from. And so I'm going to look into, that kind of question. What can we do to make it easier to communicate when we decide to do so, but also just the fact that there is a need for us to be clear between ourselves, really, to further our own internal conversation, forming our little echo chambers and whatnot. There's actually a utility to that we have to get square in our own point of view. What is it that we're after? What do we want? What is it going to take to get it? And that comes even before it comes time to, I guess, bridge the gap across the aisle and talk to, try to bring people in from the other side. The whole walk away movement, we want to bring those people over, but are we even sure ourselves what we want to accomplish? I mean, in a vague way, we could say, well, we're trying to kill deep state. Okay, that's a nice start, but this is more than just the individuals. It's more than just Hillary and Obama going down. We have to root out the deep state, by the roots. We have to dig this whole organization up. So all the mafia and all the mobs and, whether you're talking about gangs or whatever lingo you're using to describe it, all these bad guys are ultimately answering to the same authority. We call it cabal, deep state, Satan worshippers, whatever. It doesn't matter. Anyway, we need to know ourselves what we're doing. What is Corsi Nation internally here? So within the organization of Corsi Nation, what are we trying to accomplish? How can we develop shows that are going to stay in keeping with our mission? And how can we reach the largest number of people? Basically, how do we do our jobs? So anyway, this is episode 39, Incommensurability, Necessity of Echo Chambers. You kind of understand what I'm getting at, right, guys?
Yep.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Boom. We don't have the Norse attack map yet. It's still out of service for some reason. It's been close to a week now. I don't know what's up with that.
It's being attacked.
Yeah, I guess. It's like we've got there's some other attack map. There's really nothing that competes with both the utility and the beauteousness of Norse attack maps. It's so cool, but they're currently out of service. Probably because we find them useful and interesting. And the deep state doesn't want us to have our pretty toys. What I'm guessing. Damn it. Okay, so tonight there was the Trump rally in Houston supporting Ted Cruz, and I didn't get to see it. So anybody here see any of that?
No, the only thing go ahead. Did you, Army Wife?
Yep, actually, and it is completely packed. I believe they said it holds 18,000 if they're, unless there's a basketball game, and they don't, of course, allow the audience to be sitting on the floor. But there's 18,000 inside, and all the blocks are just completely wrapped around with people who couldn't get in. And the good thing is the POTUS and them had the billboards are now, I guess, turned into more like big TVs out there
cool.
for the audience, all the way just wrapped around. And as of a couple of minutes ago, he was still at the rally talking, and he has been there. I believe he came on stage about an hour and 15 minutes ago, and they are stoked, man. They're ecstatic, the audience is. So it's definitely a pumped up rally in Texas tonight.
Well, the other day, I forgot you were from down that way. The other day, I saw that, yes, it holds 18,000. And this was the other day. They already had 77,000 signed up.
Well, as
wanting to get in.
Yeah, as of this morning, there was 100,000 people, right at 100,000 people that were trying to get tickets. Yeah,
That's outstanding. Outstanding.
Yep, and people were down there last night, basically sleeping in the parking lot, I guess, in their vehicles, camping out overnight in the parking lot so that they could be some of the first ones to get in today.
This is.
Okay, I didn't hear what that was. Getting out of me.
Oh, really?
We're little robots.
Shoot. I said this is like a Rolling Stone concert.
Oh man, yeah, they are just ecstatic. Even, the ones outside all have their Trump baseball shirts on and the jerseys and their hats, and Trump announced tonight that they're going to add, and they just, I got through passing, I think they're implementing it in the next week, is an additional 10% tax cut to the middle class. So people are happy. He's going down the list of accomplishments. And was that me?
What? I'm trying to have I guess I'm talking to Jax in the background and doing the text thing with Jax. She's in the chat room with us, but we're not hearing her, so I don't know what to do about that.
I don't hear her.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are.
Oh, I can hear you now. Okay. So yeah, he had a great rally tonight, and they were just ecstatic about the 10% additional 10% income tax that's going to be for the middle class that they're going to be passing it any day now. They've already got it in order. They said they've been working on it for a couple of months, and he went down, of course, all of the I guess Texas and is going to be supplying the LNG for Germany now. I believe that must have gone through like today. And that's instead of them getting their natural gas from Russia, since we're protecting them from Russia, they're going to be getting, my understanding will be from Texas. And so, of course, then the 18,000 plus everybody outside, they just.
Did you hear anything? Did you hear what Ted Cruz had to say? Did he speak at all?
Yeah, he spoke. Yep. He went down, what all they've got accomplished and things that Beto O'Rourke, the guy who's running against him, things that Beto O'Rourke stands for, basically open borders,
gun
the
control.
Money. yeah. I mean, you name it. I mean, and he went down the list, everything that Beto stands for, and the corruption that's going to be involved, if Beto was to be elected for that position. And how bad he would be for the state of Texas. The governor, Greg Abbott, came out and he had them riled up before POTUS got there.
I can imagine.
Oh man, it was invigorating. It really was invigorating.
Well, I can't imagine Texas being any sort of challenge in the midterms. I mean, this is going to be just a slaughterhouse, isn't it? I mean,
it should be.
So.
Yeah,
I hope so. We actually
they're going after our guns. They're going after the domestic oil. I mean, how is it that?
Yeah, Corkin came out and spoke, and of course, and he is actually. I think Corkin's up in Dallas. Is where Corkin is at, and then there was a preacher that came out first. I'm thinking it's probably the preacher from Dallas that's done several prayers for the Trump administration at rallies. I can't remember what his name is. He's a real skinny guy. But then Laura Trump came out. Eric Trump came out. Of course, Governor Abbott came out. Who is it? The assistant governor, Patrick came out. I can't remember what position he is. Man, he really got them riled up. I'm telling you. They were stoked tonight, is all I got to say. The crowd was ecstatic. So everything. Oh, man. Yeah. USA, man. And that you got to watch it. It was just, it's crazy.
Yeah, I'll have to go back in and look at that. I'm going to pull up real quick. I'm going to look at, see if Trump has tweeted anything today that looks interesting. Looks like, oh, this is probably the crowd here.
Well, here's the crazy thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
The crazy thing is the Dems are already, there's rumors on that side that Beto is a good 2020 presidential candidate. And I'm thinking, how can you even be thinking that right now? He's not going to beat Cruz.
Oh, this video I'm showing right now is actually from last night.
Outside.
That was the night before Houston. 11:15 p.m. the night before Houston. So there's a huge line of people all camped out, and that was the night before.
Yeah, that was last night. Yeah, they were getting ready for today. They want to make sure they got plenty of parking and all that kind of stuff. And Beto's the one. He had the DWI. He had that hit and run and tried to leave the scene, and then lied about it at a debate stage recently.
Well, and he's also the one. He's trying to pull like all the other lefties. He's like 0.2% Hispanic, and he's trying to say he is Hispanic, and you know, like Elizabeth Warren, like so many others. But
he went fundraising in California just the other day.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Jesus.
Yeah.
I happened to watch Breitbart was live outside the arena, I guess you'd call it, today, walking through the crowds, and it was it was outstanding. It really was.
Yeah, we are a lively crew down here. I can guarantee you that.
Let's set up the birth certificate there.
What? What the birth certificate? What?
There was a set of feet. There was a.
Oh. There's a delay, man. You don't see what I'm looking at right away.
No, I don't. So what was that? Because go ahead.
Okay, it's a Washington Examiner shock report. U.S. paying more for illegal immigrant births than Trump's wall.
Okay, thank you. Well, I heard another rumor the other day about Obama's certificate, and it's like I thought maybe that was something about it.
Yeah, we got to be careful with the rumors. I mean.
I know.
Sometimes, yeah, I'm just saying.
Rosenstein is the one who had all those documents sealed.
Mm-hmm.
You know that, right?
Who's the one that had?
Yes, I had heard that.
Rosenstein.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So Jax isn't back here yet? No, Jaxie?
No, I'm here.
There. Just being quiet. Just quiet. Contemplative mood tonight?
I suppose.
Well, so this is where we have to get a little bit heady. We're going to go through our little exercise in self-education, also known as becoming an autodidact, self-educated autodidact. So Thomas Kuhn, yeah, Thomas Kuhn is he's a philosopher of science, and he wrote a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. He's the guy who coined the term paradigm. So like as in paradigm shift, we're talking about Thomas Kuhn. So like when Newtonian science was trumped by, whether it be the theory of relativity or it's quantum mechanics, things like that, then we can no longer utilize the same language of the previous paradigm. And so there's some difficulties there between different paradigms. It doesn't always... So when you're looking at the world through a particular lens, then the previous lens we were using doesn't always apply, at least not one-to-one the way we would hope it would. And that might be a feature of how humans, how we understand things, or it might be a feature of the world itself. Not exactly clear. But we do know that you're speaking a different language, you're not going to understand each other. That's the bottom line. And that includes the metaphors we use to describe the world we live in. And everything basically is a metaphor. If you think about it, like we come up with some kind of model that we use to describe the world that we inhabit. Like in science, that we would say we have the Niels Bohr model of the atom, where we have this picture of like molecules, and we have like the nucleus and the electrons zipping around it, and then these electrons, then you can like smash one atom together in with another atom, and you have a molecule, right? But those those are just for our own convenience of being able to describe what's going on there. It's not actually what's happening. It's just a shorthand way to understand it. And so that's true of all of our models, because, however we want to describe the world, it's always just a map for the terrain that we're trying to describe, and hopefully we can make the map accurate. But we don't want to make the mistake of thinking that the map is the reality we're trying to describe, because it's not. And so when we're using these different paradigms, they're just different maps of reality. So if you're using a different map than somebody else, then it's not easy to talk about things. And not only to mention the fact that, some of us are after different questions than other people. So definitely in your own life, if you feel threatened in a particular way, I think it's quite natural for us to gather together in groups and try to find defense against a common enemy, a common threat. And so you have political orientations where we kind of gather together in our conservative or liberal circles. And what that amounts to is we perceive the world differently, and we're concerned about different things. And sometimes it makes it so we talk past each other. We are not even on the same page. We are not even in the same modality of experience. We don't even experience the world similar enough to have a conversation. That's the problem. We can't even have a conversation. So, which is why, I see a lot of people in, criticizing the concept of an echo chamber. But if you look at all these different academic disciplines out there, you got your biology versus chemistry versus physics. Then you got your politics and your religion and all these different different categories of knowledge. And you're looking through this lens. So you have your primary discipline. You say, okay, this is what reality means to me. This is how I interpret my experience. Everything makes sense according to this. It's like we have only one tool in our toolbox, and when all we have is a hammer, then everything looks like a nail, right? So if we don't learn different disciplines, then we can't communicate over those boundaries. But also, there's a lot of replication there. So, like, precisely what is the difference between sociology and psychology? I mean, really, when you get down to it, or what exactly is the difference between religion and politics? And you may think but because of the fact that we use different languages, different metaphors to describe these things, it's not actually so clear always what we're really getting at. So anyway, I was wondering about, in terms of Corsi Nation, I see us as part of a larger context. I see us as having, the biggest context that I see this in is we're part of a do-it-yourself movement. So people that want to go out there in the garage and tinker around, they're basically doing the same thing we are, in that sense that we're just, we're sick of depending on somebody else to get the work done. We're going to do the best we can. And a lot of times it comes out very amateurish. But that's maybe part of the charm. I don't know. But anyway, so the do-it-yourself movement, we're all trying to become more handy, empowered. Yes, self-reliance. That's the thing. Yeah. We're all trying to be more self-reliant. And so within that, then there's alt media. So some people are just trying to make, they're making movies, doing fiction and things like that. And that's good too, but because we all need our entertainment and what stuff like that. And within that, we also have, citizen journalism. So people that are actually trying to be specifically addressing the current events, things that are happening in the world right now. And we're trying to do that, in a way that is at odds with legacy media, the big media, corporate media, whatever you want to call it. We're talking about things from a different point of view than what they are, because the mainstream media is not taking our concerns into account when they tell these stories. And also the fact that they lie to us, but yeah. But
I don't think it's a matter of them taking our concerns into account. They want to lie to us. They have an agenda, obviously.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But when you got, what's happening at the top levels of the DNC or the GOP or whatever, you got, they have their agendas, but then you got your average Joe, your your friend or your cousin or whatever on Facebook, and they see the world through a certain lens. Maybe they started out as trade union guys, and so their union tells them to vote Democrat, so they start looking at the world through that lens. And a big part of what that is they start talking about the nature of social justice, or they're concerned about social justice. So that, in their mind, is the most important thing. And my contention, and I don't know if I'm not trying to put words in anybody else's mouth, but my contention is that the people that find themselves in the conservative camp are more interested in personal responsibility, personal accountability. So we're after different things, even on that level. Before we get into, whatever corruption exists higher up, the basic orientation of the people who vote one way or the other is different. The concerns we have are different. Where the Democrats want to know what justice is, the Republicans want to know what virtue is. Right? So I mean, sure. Ideally, we want to be able to have a conversation where, it's okay for conservatives to ask the question of what does it mean to live a virtuous life, and how can we expect our fellow man to live something along the lines, or at least approaching a virtuous life. Whereas the Democrats don't care about any of that. They don't care about personal responsibility. They don't care about the virtue of their citizens. They just talk about things in terms of these demographic classifications. What are you, men versus women, or, different minorities, different class systems, different religious outlooks, all those different things. But we're talking past each other. That's the point. So,
I don't know if we're talking past each other, but I don't think that anyone's taking the time to sit down and really listen to what they think, because I think the left is more like an emotional. They are thinking on an emotional level instead of a practical level. And I think that a lot of people do that. I don't think they want to take the time to really listen, because it's just learn. And I don't think that we're missing each other on that, but I think that it's basically that they're not willing to listen and learn. And sometimes I think we're guilty of that as well. But I think for the most part, I think that we're thinking on a different level. I think that the right thinks more on a practical level, and the left thinks very much on an emotional level without taking in any of the practicalities or the information and how it might impact people. They just see the emotional part without seeing the reaction, the consequences, without seeing the consequences.
Yeah, they see whatever is on their agenda to cause total chaos at all times, whatever can control the masses, things like that. And even Breitbart came out with a thing today from Nancy Pelosi. There will be collateral damage to those who don't agree with us. See, that's just the Democratic Party right there. If they don't get their way, they're going to throw a temper tantrum.
Right, because they think emotionally. They don't think practically.
Exactly.
Well, and that may be the case, but also, if we're asking different questions, then of course we're going to be looking for different answers. So it depends on what questions we're asking, and the methods there are, and I'm worried that we're going to write them off as being, merely emotional, but what exactly is the distinction between like cognitive effort, like thinking on a rational level versus thinking emotionally? It's another one of those binaries that we can assert to be the case when it may not be so clean as what we would like it to be. Maybe our reason is informed by our emotions, or vice versa. And
I think with something like this here with Pelosi, for instance, and I'll give you my understanding of their particular behavior on collateral damage. Okay, it doesn't just mean collateral damage. Okay, it doesn't mean that they're going to throw a temper tantrum and piss their pants or anything, just throw a snot slinging fit on stage and raise 9 kinds of cane at at their get-togethers, and get their people all round up. It means collateral damage, and they have billions of dollars to enforce collateral damage. We've got Antifa, which they funded, and that's their collateral damage. Okay, things don't go right, then we'll have more riots in the street. There'll be.
Well, I just don't want to let ourselves, I don't want to let ourselves off the hook so easily. It seems to me like describing everything that the other side is doing, and so like these stark differences between white hats and black hats, it seems lazy to me. I think we need to make an effort to understand, especially the typical voter that's on the other side. But
the typical voter is so emotionally invested in what they believe that they do not have the ability to listen. And I think that's the problem. And the left uses that, the bad guys uses that to their advantage because they can manipulate the living socks off of them if they can.
Well, are we listening though, is my question. I mean, if you accuse them of not listening, well, that's what I'm trying to get to here. I'm going to be more effective about that. Right now, I got the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy up there. It's an encyclopedia. It's similar to Wikipedia, but is actually written by experts in the field under each entry there. And what we're talking about here is communication. And one half of that, one half of communication is the art of listening. Hermeneutics is the technical term for listening to somebody else's perspective, or it literally means the art of interpretation. Goes back to Aristotle, but and it's often used. The word is often employed when you're talking about like scriptural hermeneutics, like biblical hermeneutics, but it can apply to any sort of interpretation of another person's experience. And there's a certain methodology that has been developed over thousands of years. So this is the kind of thing where we can learn from the tradition that we have at our disposal. Western philosophy and the Western academic tradition in general has much to offer in teaching us how to be better listeners. And I would recommend that people start looking into this kind of thing and learn how to see the world through another person's eyes. There's a Schleiermacher he mentioned in here, and that's one of the important people that developed this as a kind of a generic theory. How to interpret another person's experience, how to interpret what they're saying about their experience.
Okay, so let me read you this and then we can all interpret it. How's that? In a long, rambling monologue during which Nancy Pelosi stumbled on her words and appeared to lose her train of thought, Pelosi said, "We have to have total clarity about what we do when it comes to everything. A woman's right to choose, gay marriage, whether it's about immigration, whether it's about gun safety, whether it's about climate. I think that we owe the American people to be there for them, for their financial security, respecting the dignity and worth of every person in our country." Okay, keep that in mind. "And if there's some collateral damage for some others who do not share our view, well, so be it. But it shouldn't be our original purpose. It is not clear what Pelosi meant by collateral damage, though Democrats have advocated ostracizing and even prosecuting those who do not share their views on climate change." So let's break that down and let's try to understand that.
That's not the point, though. I mean, you got a few people at the top that are obviously bad, and we can get those guys. But we need to talk about
those people are the ones that are dictating what we're going through today.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let's throw the people off the top, literally. I can get rid of them. I could care less about them. Let's talk about the everyday layman. Let's talk about my uncle who votes Democrat because the union tells him to. He is conservative in every way, every speak, everything he thinks about is conservative. But the Democrats tell him to vote. His union tells him to vote Democrat, so he does. Now,
didn't they just pass that law, though?
Let's talk about, I don't know which law.
They passed a law that they couldn't do that anymore.
Yep.
Well, I understand that, but this is but you gotta this is ingrained.
This is ingrained, yeah.
Right.
Okay, got it.
So now let's talk about the immigrants. Let's talk about on a daily basis how many Democratic voters, not the people at the top, Democratic voters are brain dead when it comes to common sense. So common sense tells you, if you look at a picture of these immigrants that are marching up through Mexico, waving their country's flags, got a pissed off look on their face and saying, "America better take us. America better take us."
Right.
I said to my girlfriend tonight, I said, if I was in their position, if my country was so crappy and I thought America was the only place that I could find a better life, you know what I'd be doing? I'd be waving an American flag. I would buy an American flag. I'd be waving an American flag, and I'd be going, please, please take us in. Please.
You know, President Trump he addressed that at the rally tonight, and there's video footage of them being paid money. And
yes, we know that. Okay. We talked about that on Corsi Nation.
Yeah, the logistical support of it is just someone is funding it. Okay, and these people, there's many of them are military age fighting men. And that's the thing that is happening, of course, in our European countries, and that's why Italy's trying to. Yeah, they send them over, and it's basically. Well, we know who's funding this. Okay, we know they're funding this, and that's just to degrade the country so that we are not a sovereign nation. That's why they don't want borders. That's why they want a complete, total chaos here all the time, so that the UN can jump in, and that's why President Trump said, "Okay, we're just not going to fund you."
Army wife, this is not even for that. This is strictly to screw up the election. That's what this particular run is to screw up the election. Now, anybody with a lick of common sense can see that.
Yeah. Right.
Anybody with any common sense whatsoever. And I'm sure there are certain Democrats that actually see that.
Yeah.
But, Brain, we're talking about having discussions with these people, having discussions seeing it from their side and everything else.
Right.
I'm sorry, you cannot have a discussion with someone who is seeing this only through an emotional outlet.
Yeah, but you're saying that it's an emotional outlet, and that becomes a confirmational bias. You assert that, from their point of view, they're not being emotional, or at least not all of them. That's your own projection onto them. That maybe in your mind, that's what you'd have to be to look at the world the way they do. But
either emotional or stupid.
My point is that you're asking different questions, right? And you're not even hearing me, let alone them. So,
I am.
So listen. So, and I'm not saying it's 100% across the board, but just for the sake of getting into the discussion, right? Say that it is true that what a conservative is really concerned about overall is the nature of personal virtue. And say, for the sake of the same argument, that justice is the thing that the Democrats want. Okay, just keep it simple and look at it like this. Instead of it being a question of, no, I want to talk about virtue. No, the other guy say, no, I want to talk about justice. Say, okay, let's talk about justice. And so rather than ignoring their question, right, you actually address their question. What is the nature of justice? And maybe if you do that, then you'll start having a conversation, which is the type of topic that they want to talk about. And maybe you'll teach them through that discussion that they don't have the right answer about what justice actually is. But maybe when you're talking about identity politics and lumping everybody into these demographic classifications, that is actually not what a just society amounts to. A just society is not about keeping everybody divided against each other according to these labels. You see?
Okay,
you got to understand my point.
But they know this.
Because rather than just saying, no, I don't want to talk about justice, I want to talk about virtue, give them the concession that the topic for conversation is justice. Now, let's have the conversation on that topic and actually get somewhere.
Okay. You and I, Saturday night, met a couple of gentlemen, and we started talking. We did not know where they came from in the political realm of things, yet we were open to discussion. They didn't always agree with us. We didn't always agree with them. But here's the thing. 90%, I'm throwing that number out there. I never say 100%. Every time I talk about something, I never say 100%. 90% of good conservatives that I know could sit and have a conversation with somebody about anything. It's usually the other side. It's usually the left that cannot sit and have the conversation.
And I'll back you up on that. And because I can't tell you how many Christmases that I have had with my ex-husband where I've had to sit down and explain to him, this is the science, or this is what's really happening. This is the proof right here. Even when they're faced with the proof, they refuse to accept that as the truth.
Well, listen, I'm not even going there. I'm not even going so far as to say I'm laying my stuff out there and saying you better believe it or whatever. I'm saying I'm saying that I will approach somebody that I have no idea. I trained a guy not too long ago, and I said to him the first day, I says, "What is your political views?" Now, had he said liberal, I would have said, "Okay, I'm a conservative. I guess we don't need to talk about politics unless you want to." But he said conservative. So we got along swimmingly. We talked about everything. Okay. Point being, I can sit and have a conversation with a liberal and I can listen to him.
Mm-hmm.
But if you start to put your point across,
they don't want to
listen. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen. And you're screwed up.
And there's something wrong with you.
And it's not true the other direction? Both sides are guilty of the same sin.
I don't think so.
Brain, I just sat there and told you, and I'll prove it to you some night. We'll do that. We'll do an experiment. I don't care. We'll find a liberal, and I can sit and have a conversation with them. I can. Now, whether they can sit and have a conversation with me is yet to be seen. But yes, I can have it. You know me. I can talk to a wall. I often do. But you know, it's like, oh, okay. Hey, you have a certain buddy who works at a tattoo parlor, and you introduced us, and we're opposite sides of the coin, no doubt about it. But he and I can sit and have a conversation. He and I chatted on Facebook, and he and I talked in person, and we get along fine.
Well, sure, as long as you don't talk about anything important.
Right. But I could sit and listen to his views on stuff. But I bet he could not sit and listen to my views.
But there's nothing reciprocal. There's nothing. There's no open dialogue to go back and forth. I don't think either. I mean, maybe one side is less inclined than the other, but I don't think that either side is particularly good at communicating. They don't, and mainly it's about listening. So I was hoping to introduce this concept of hermeneutics so that we could learn to be better listeners. Even people that are conservative, sometimes it's hard to listen to their perspective. You know, if you do share a lot of the same sort of priorities in life, you're still going to have difficulties at times trying to understand what they're saying. But it comes from just a simple fact that we all have different subjectivity. Our subjectivity is different. We have different psychological associations with certain things. We don't really have access to another person's experience in no direct way. All we have is the words they say to describe them. And, you know, some people are better and other people are worse at being able to articulate the experiences they're having, especially in such a way that it's not being offensive to the person they're speaking with. So, like, being able to communicate, half of it is about hermeneutics, and the other half is about rhetoric, about being able to describe your position well and do so in such a way that you are understood clearly without being offensive. Hopefully in such a way that you can even help them be sympathetic to your cause or your concerns. Well, here's my thought. Why do we have to watch whether or not we're being offensive? I am so sick and tired of watching my P's and Q's on the way I talk that I'm about ready to scream. You know, I really am. I have to say certain things and I have to be a certain way. And 20 years ago, I didn't have to do that. You know, I could speak my mind without worrying about offending anyone. And that's offensive to me. Just saying.
I agree. I totally agree. Merry Christmas, damn it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Merry Christmas.
I'm sorry you had to watch your P's and Q's.
And may God bless you.
Yes.
Well, I hopefully made my case on that point. I don't know. No, you guys aren't agreeing with me, but at least I had the opportunity to express myself, and I appreciate that.
And we interpreted it well. Thank you.
Well, did you? I'm not sure that's the case.
Hey,
I'm a great listener.
Brain, I'm glad that you have hope for this humanity.
It's not a matter of hope. It's a necessity. We need to be able to be better listeners. We're going to get along in life.
Yeah, but that listening streak goes two ways.
Yes, and if we set a good example for others to follow, then maybe the rest of the world will catch up to us.
But I don't think they're mature enough to do that. I'm sorry. I'm going to come out and say it.
Nope, I don't either. There's a whole different mindset here, Brain.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, it is. Think about the last, I don't care, 4 years. Last 4 years, the end of Obama's term and the beginning of Trump's term, and you think about the childish ways that these people have acted. And I understand it's not 100% of them. I understand it's the far left. I do understand that.
Well, the deep state is obviously their own problem. But I'm talking about the average citizen. We have to be able to communicate with them.
Even the average citizen has devolved. I'm looking at
right. But so rather than contribute to the problem,
who I used to be able to listen, talk to.
Yeah, but rather than contributing to the problem, why shouldn't we start fixing it? Let's all start learning how to be better listeners and make sure that we're asking the same question, that we're even talking about the same subject before we keep, trying to push our dogmas on other people.
Facebook deletes a disabled vets page after taking $300,000 for their ads.
You're kidding me.
Nope.
That's according to Breitbart.
Nope.
Jesus.
And that's what we're dealing with. They don't want to listen to civil discourse. They don't want to. They shut us down at they have gotten to the point where they just do not want to listen. They do not care about anyone else, and they'll shut us down at any cost. That is a perfect example of it.
Well, I'm hoping that someday somebody comes across this video and they understand what I'm trying to say, and they'll show me a little bit of sympathy and understand what I'm trying to say,
Well, I understand what you're trying to say, and in a perfect world, that would be great. But we're really dealing with some people with some maturity issues, and it's devolving on a daily basis.
And how do you fix that?
I don't think you can.
Well, you certainly can't just fix it by forcing your ways down their throat.
No, you can't.
Dogma is not the way to go. And both sides are being dogmatic.
Well, that is their goal.
No.
Right now, the elites, the ones who run these big companies, that's their goal. And they may have been paid lots and lots of money to accomplish this goal. And we need to think about that too.
And we also have to think this is also a form of brainwashing.
Exactly, it is. And even, for instance, like this Facebook thing right here. I just want to read you a quick thing about this. Why would Facebook take $300,000 of this guy's for the advertising with no warning to this guy, and he's a vet, okay? Right. This is exactly what it says on Breitbart. On his new website, which aims to put an end to social media censorship, Air Force veteran, a triple amputee, Brian Colfage, explains who he is and the challenges he's facing, stating, "I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force. I was severely wounded in combat on 9/11/2004. While serving in Iraq, I lost both of my legs entirely and my right hand. I'm the most severely wounded U.S. airman to survive." He continues, "I'm not a conservative and I'm not a liberal. I'm an American with deep beliefs in what our country stands for." So he goes on and tells basically anyone who's censoring to stop it. It's to stop social media censorship. And it's quite a long spiel that he gives out here. But yeah, Facebook basically just deletes his page without warning after taking $300,000 for his ads.
And yet Hillary Clinton will come out and say, it's okay to, until we get our way, we have to be uncivil and we have to take these people out. Yeah. Not so many words. And she doesn't get in any trouble.
And they've got people who are
Well, congratulations. You're not any worse than Hillary Clinton. Is that what you want to compare yourself against?
No. What we're saying is we've got to work somehow with the colleges, and even in the schools. They've taken out so much that they force the kids to, or they drill into their head, they brainwash them into thinking that this is the way that you should behave.
Right. So and that this is civil discourse. And this is civil discourse. And this is how you listen.
Yeah. And they teach it, on their phones and through the media that comes across their phones. And it's so much of it's not, well, let's say this, so much of it actually should go back to the parents. But with the economy the way that it should go back to rearing your children correctly. Yes. However, in a society, whenever under the previous administration, definitely, I don't even know what the percentage rates for divorces were, but the rate of which mothers had to raise children by themselves, because you had drug addicts and you got shootings and, drugs and gangs and stuff were more important than holding down a job and being proud to have a job or being proud to have a family. That was out the window in the last 30 years. So people were actually made money, stay home and have children, not be married, and they could have 6 kids all by a different daddy and have child support
and
brought
still
in.
Drive a Cadillac.
Yeah, and have child support paid by each one of the fathers of those children, not one man in the household, to show them that this is what it is to be a man. This is what it is to raise a family, and this is what it is to be an American.
So how does one generation acquire the virtue that you want them to have in order to teach the next generation? If there's you can't make something from nothing, Well,
sometimes you can. However, and I think that Diamond and Silk has done a really good job of helping wake up the African American community in ways that we never even imagined, to help them realize that they need to get off what they call the plantation, because they've always been told to vote Democrat. But once you actually look back on it, Denise DeSouza did an outstanding video on Hillary's America and slavery. They always had people brainwashed into the Democratic Party is here to take care of you. However, if you actually look at the majority of cities and towns that are run by the Democrats, are literally run into the hole. And our people, and no matter what color your skin is, I mean, we all bleed the same color, those communities are literally run into the hole. There's no jobs, their businesses have closed down. And then you've got families that are completely tore apart because of the way that society is, that they've grown up in. I mean, literally, they were born into this. So how do you get yourself out of it? How do you
that's where the conversation needs to go, because virtue and justice actually go hand in hand. Right now, we're in a situation where they've got us divided against each other, and they got one half of us talking about virtue, the other people talking about justice. We have to collectively transcend that and stop thinking, well, they're not listening to us, so we don't have to listen to them, because that's juvenile, frankly. And we have to actually start bringing this conversation on both of those things, because it's a chicken and the egg. The virtuous individual is going to produce a just society, and the just society is going to work to produce virtuous individuals. They're connected.
Right, but in school, that's not what they're teaching them, though.
So we have to do better than them, not be just like them.
The problem is what we have to do is we have to hope that each generation has a Moses or a Trump or someone that can speak, that people will, oh wait, maybe he's making sense.
Well, I'm trying, but you guys don't think it's true. So,
well, first of all, you're not a Moses or a Trump there, mister. But hold on.
Go ahead. Yeah, say it. Spit it out.
I have to say something, because you kind of pissed me off there, Brain. When you said, yeah, I know. It's funny. When you said, just now, you said, well, it's childish because they're not listening to me, so I'm not going to listen to them. Okay. I know that was pointed towards us, and you're wrong. Oh. That is not what we said. No, that is not what we said at all. Mm-hmm. We said we would try, and we would.
Well, that's what I'm trying to propose here, is to be better at it.
They are not listening to us. So where do you go from there?
They don't have the programming to listen to us.
I once joked about on the Corsi show about how do you talk to a person in a pink pussy hat?
Right.
You know? But that's the truth of it. That is the truth of it.
Well, if we're going to set a better example, then we have to be the mature ones in the room, and we have to actually listen to them and not get upset.
Mature ones.
But we're not going to get upset about the fact that they're not listening to us. We're going to actually try to figure out why they're not listening to us and try to help them.
I think Trump has actually done. Every rally now, he's getting more and more. He goes more and more into the thinking that we used to actually have whenever we had families. You know what I mean? When there was more of a majority of a husband and a wife raising children together. He's going more and more back to that of, be proud to hold a job. Right. Be proud that you're not on welfare. That's part of the American dream. Have a family. Exactly. Yeah. And be proud that you can be an American homeowner. And, the American dream is reachable. When in the previous administration, they run that into the ground. That just was not going to happen. And their goal through the previous administration was to actually put everybody in little bitty, 200 square foot homes. And that was their goal.
And I think the deep state knows this, though. I mean, virtue and justice intersects in the nuclear family, and that's why they took over the feminist movement and used that to attack the family, because that's where the individual virtue and the social justice coincide in that family unit.
And now they've, and over the last 20, 30 years, definitely the last 20, they've gotten to where they give more benefits to a mom who will stay home and have 5 or 6 kids than to say, well, you want to have 5 or 6 kids, that's fine, but you still have to support those children one way or the other. The same woman will get, if she's got 5 or 6 different biological fathers for the kids, she still gets child support for each one of those children, and she may not, need to work. However, though, she shouldn't be sitting there getting food stamps if she's bringing in $4,000 a month in child support. And I think that that's where it's helping for so many Americans to get off of food stamps and to actually get a job. The restrictions aren't as lenient as they used to be. And that right there helps people better understand, what, you can get out and work for a living and you can make a better life for yourself and for
But we still
children.
need good role models, right? And a lot of kids are being raised in environments where they don't have father figures, and there's an economic incentive to get the father out of the household. The deep state made sure that that would happen. And that's the real justice. That's the real injustice in the minority communities. They have been rewarded for keeping the family separate. That
was a generational thing, and I think that Diamond and Silk have done an outstanding job to help the community better understand, our country better understand what the Democratic Party did.
But even
what they've done over all these years, what they taught their grandparents, their great grandparents. That this is the way that you're supposed to live. This is the way you're supposed to live. You're supposed to live like this. You're supposed to live like this. You're supposed to.
But even when we have those examples, then we have the left sitting there saying, oh, well, that's wrong. Because it's a white mom and a white dad. And if it's not mixed race, or if it is mixed race, then there's something wrong with that. Or if it's not a gay household, then there's something wrong with that. And this is the problem that we're dealing with.
We have to separate the problem. There's actually more than one problem. We have to peel them apart in order to deal with them. Because
a lot of this will go back to the nuclear family. Much of this will go back to your schools, though. And I'm telling you, they are not. They're not teaching the things that they used to teach whenever we were growing up.
But people that did have an intact family unit have to have compassion for those who have not had those role models in their own lives. Without that, I mean, that's a real need, and there is a need for the conservatives to respect social justice. It's just that what the left means by social justice is not real justice. So we do have to concern ourselves with the nature of justice. It's just not the same answer as what they want.
Right. Their social justice is you should have a transgender in your grade school pole dancing with your kids there. Okay, that's their idea of social justice.
Well, they want everything to be reducible to an economic interest. It's like if you have, it's like they want to give them more money, as if money is the answer to all their problems. It's not money that's going to fix what's wrong with them.
Right, and they feel that social justice is pedophiles. It's okay. They tried to normalize
things that are not okay.
These things are not okay. Sorry, it's against the
law.
Right,
but you're again conflating the people at the top, the deep state people, with the average typical Democrat. They're not the same people.
But the average typical Democrat that I've come across in areas like Seattle, that's what they're like. That's what they believe, and they believe it all wholeheartedly. And you just sit there and you're like, wow. What do you say to that then?
Well, I know that I, for one, don't feel like I'm being understood.
Well, I mean, for many of these people, though, you need to look at...
I know you don't feel like you're being understood.
Okay? You need to look at their background. Maybe they have a whole neighborhood or the whole city is nothing but a bunch of pedophiles. Maybe this is who they've been around all their life. And that right there is a mental issue. But these are things that also need to be taken into consideration. However, I don't have to deal with our family is Republican. Let's say that. Yeah, we can have some debates about, maybe a policy or something like that. But no, nothing else. We're not. That's it. We're going to vote straight Republican now, and that's just the way that it is. And it couldn't be a higher urgency to make it sure that they made it to the polls. So,
right.
But yeah, the way that the Democratic Party, the ones who are really leading the far left of the Democratic Party they're trying to normalize illegal behavior. They're
immoral behavior,
absolutely,
and unethical behavior, and
exactly.
That's the problem.
And they're pushing it down. This is what they've done over the last 20-30 years. They put Marxists in our colleges. They put social justice lunatics in our schools, teaching our children. And even after Trump won, we had the one that had a water pistol there. Shooting the board of Trump being projected onto the screen. I mean, what kind of nuts are they letting teach our children? That's the thing.
Right.
I mean, my daughter's homeschooling now because there are some real nuts out there. But it's crazy the things that is going on. I mean, we really, as parents, we really need to go in there and hold our schools accountable, which so many of them don't now. I mean, my children, they're in their 30s, one's almost 40, and we just did not see this whenever our children we were involved with our communities. We're involved.
Well, we've had an hour. And so we're going to be heading out now. I don't know if we're anywhere closer to...
No.
I think, in fact, this was an example of a failed conversation. But it is what it is.
Gankling and Palin says, good show, folks.
All right. I hope somebody out there that's listening to us, if it's archived or whatever, if you listen to us, find a solution. Fix our problems. Be the Moses. You can do it. Bye, everybody.
Have a great evening.
Good night.